When you're a pilot, there are things you're trained for. Mechanical failure, storm systems, bird strikes. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepares you for when the sky itself turns against you. What I saw over the Gulf of Mexico wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't turbulence. It was a thing, a predator. And I've never flown again since that day. I was a commercial pilot for 15 years. Mid-sized jets, regional runs, smooth work. I loved the sky, the silence, the space, the freedom. Until August 17th, 2019. We were ferrying a private charter, 6 passengers from Corpus Christi to Havana. Small plane, Cessna Citation, clear weather, no turbulence. At 30,000 feet, we were completely alone in the sky. Or so we thought. Around 45 minutes in, the plane shook. Not a bump, a ripple, like something brushed us from the outside. Co-pilot looked at me and said, "Did we just hit something?" No storm, no birds. I checked radar. Blank. Then it happened again. The third time I looked out the left window, and I saw it. A segment, massive, dark, scaly, sliding past the fuselage, like a moving piece of sky, impossibly long. It was curved, arcing through the atmosphere, as wide as a road, moving with precision, speed, and intelligence. It was a serpent, flying, coiling in and out of the clouds like water, and it was following us. I took manual control, veered slightly northeast. The plane resisted, like something was pulling on us. My co-pilot panicked. He said, "It's under us. Look." I checked the external cam, and there it was. A massive head, rising up, eyes like black mirrors, no wings, no fins, just power. Its mouth opened, lined with rows of shifting serrated plates like shark teeth made of obsidian. And then it hissed. But we didn't hear it through the cabin. We felt it in our bones. Every instrument went wild. Artificial horizons spun. Altitude dropped 2,000 feet in seconds. The passengers screamed. One fainted. One vomited blood. The sky went wrong. Clouds started spiraling around us, forming a massive tunnel. And the serpent followed. I pulled every trick I knew. Dove, climbed, rolled. But it matched us. Faster than sound, moving like a ribbon through air that shouldn't hold it. Then, silence. Dead silence. Even the engines cut for 3 seconds. And in that silence, I heard it. A whisper in a voice too old to exist. "I see you." The plane jerked violently like it had been spat out. We were suddenly 80 miles off course over the Florida Keys. Altitude stable, passengers unconscious, co-pilot crying, external cam was fried. We landed in Key West, barely. Emergency teams took over. But here's the thing. There were scales embedded in the wing, dark, metallic, not from this world. The FAA took them. Said we hit classified debris. Told me to shut up. They know. They've always known. These sky serpents? They live where we don't fly. High-altitude zones, far oceans. Weather systems no drone can survive. They're not myths. They're not from another planet. They're ours. Ancient. Predatory. Invisible until it's too late. Pilots disappear all the time. Radio silence. Wreckage never found. You think it storms? Sometimes. It's something hungry. So if you're ever on a plane and you feel a sudden shake in clear skies, if the engines stall, if the clouds start spinning, don't look out the window. Because if you see it, It's already seen you. I've been deep underground before, but I've never experienced anything like that. Some people have a fear of the dark. Others are scared of being alone in tight spaces. Me? I thought I could handle caves. I thought I could handle anything. But that was before I learned what's really down there. I was part of a caving expedition in the Appalachian Mountains. Nothing big, just a group of us wanting to explore a newly discovered system of caves. We'd been on trips before. Nothing dangerous, just rocks and darkness. But something was off with this one. When we first descended into the caverns, there was a strange smell in the air. It was sour, musky, almost like wet earth and decay mixed together. I didn't think much of it. The deeper we went, the thicker the air felt. But I thought it was just the usual conditions of an unexplored cave. We had our lights, our gear. We were ready. The first sign that something was wrong came after we found the opening to a deeper shaft, a narrow passage that led further down into a section of the cave we didn't expect. I remember it clearly. The moment we stood at the edge of that drop, I felt a strange pull in my chest, like something was beckoning us down. The others were excited, eager to push further, but I hesitated. I don't know why, but I had a bad feeling. Still, we descended. At first, it was slow. The air grew colder, and the tunnel seemed to narrow even more as we went deeper. The walls were slick and the ground uneven. But then we came to an open space, a chamber. It wasn't what I expected. There were no stalactites or stalagmites, no natural rock formations, just smooth, rounded walls that looked almost too perfect. And in the center of the chamber was a mass of something. I don't know how to describe it. It was like a hive, a nest, but it wasn't made of anything natural. It was organic, pulsing, breathing. I thought it was just a weird formation at first. Maybe some kind of fungus or a rock formation we didn't understand. But when I got closer, I saw movement, tiny shapes wriggling inside the mass. At that moment, I knew something was terribly wrong. Before anyone could react, one of the group members, Tom, moved closer. He reached out, his hand hovering near the hive. I shouted at him to stop, but it was too late. As soon as his hand made contact with it, the mass seemed to pulse, and something from within it shot out. It wrapped around his wrist, a long, thick tendril. It wasn't like anything I'd ever seen. Not a vine, not a snake. I tried to pull him back, but the thing pulled him in. And then we heard it, a sound that made my blood run cold, a deep, throaty growl from somewhere below. I watched as Tom was dragged into the hive, his screams echoing through the chamber, and in that moment I knew we were not alone. I backed away, but it was already too late. The walls began to shift, move. I could see them now. Countless eyes glinting from the dark corners of the chamber. We weren't just in a cave. We were in something else's home. Something alive. Something hungry. I wanted to run, but the way we came in was sealed off. The passage we had entered from, gone, collapsed. Nothing but rocks where the tunnel once was. The air grew heavier, the buzzing grew louder. Something was crawling, moving inside the hive, and it wasn't just the tendrils anymore. There were things in there, not human, not animal. They were more, shapeless, writhing, and they were watching us. I don't know how long we were trapped in there, minutes, hours, but as time passed, I started to feel strange. It was subtle at first, a tingle on my skin, a pressure on my thoughts. I realized something then. We were being controlled. The hive was in our heads. It made us want to move closer, made us feel like we needed to be a part of it. It wanted us to become part of the hive. I watched, paralyzed, as the others started to approach the mass. Their faces were blank, vacant, like they were under some kind of spell. I tried to scream, to move, to stop them, but my body wouldn't listen. I could hear their thoughts echoing in my head. We were all becoming one with the hive. That's when I saw it. The queen. It wasn't a creature, not a being. It was a presence, a mind, looming above the hive, controlling everything. I saw it in my mind's eye. Its form was shifting, changing, not truly visible, but it was there, and it knew I was resisting. It knew I wasn't like the others. I ran. I don't remember much of how, but I ran. I didn't look back. I couldn't. And somehow I made it out. I don't know how I got to the surface. I don't know how long I was lost down there. But when I finally reached the light, the sun, I realized something horrifying. I was the only one who made it out. The others, I don't know what happened to them. I don't even know if they're still down there. All I know is that I can't forget what I saw. The hive still whispers in my head. And if you ever find yourself near the Appalachian caves, be careful, because there's something beneath, something that calls to you. It might let you leave, but it'll always be waiting, and one day it might take you too, might. I don't know how to explain what happened up there, but I'll try. I was part of a climbing expedition in the Rockies, high-altitude stuff. Mountaineers, professionals. I'd climbed before, but nothing like this. I didn't believe in ghosts. Not until the mountain decided to show me what's really up there. We were heading up to Summit Ridge. It's not a well-known spot. Most climbers don't bother because of how dangerous it is. Elevation sickness, harsh weather, the works. But it was supposed to be a quick climb. 2 days, maybe 3. We'd be back down before the weather changed. and for the first day, everything was fine. We set up camp at 14,000 feet. The air was thin. Every breath felt like it was missing something. That night we were cooking dinner when we first heard the sounds. At first it sounded like wind, but the wind wasn't right. It didn't whistle. It howled. And then voices, not human voices. Not at first. They sounded distant, echoing. Some of us thought it was just altitude sickness, delirium. You don't sleep well at that height. It messes with your mind. But I've climbed enough to know the difference between hallucinations and something else. And this felt real. We all heard it. The whispering voices came again. One of the guys, Mark, started talking back. He was getting frustrated, pacing back and forth near the edge of camp. "You can't just leave me up here," he shouted into the wind. "I'm not one of you." We tried to calm him down, but he wouldn't stop. And that's when I saw it. A figure, standing just beyond the firelight, blending into the shadows. At first I thought it was another climber, but there was something off. It was too still, too cold looking, like it didn't belong. I called out to it. No answer. The others didn't see it. I wasn't sure if I was seeing things. Altitude sickness was already setting in. But when I looked again, it was gone. The wind died down that night, but the voices didn't. They whispered from the darkness, from the cliffs around us. Sometimes they sounded like people we knew. Sometimes they didn't. And by morning, one of the ropes had gone missing. Marks. Gone without a trace. We searched for hours, but all we found were prints, strange, jagged indentations in the snow, like something had dragged itself through the frozen landscape. And then we found Mark's pack. Empty. Nothing inside. It didn't make sense. But we had to keep going. We couldn't turn back yet. The summit was only a few miles away. But that's when things started to unravel. It wasn't just the voices anymore. We started seeing things, shapes in the distance, figures moving in the periphery of our vision. Sometimes we thought they were other climbers, but when we called out, there was never a response. At one point, one of the guys, Eric, tried to go off the path to follow what he thought was someone from our team. When he came back, he was shaking. His eyes were wide, and he wouldn't talk to us. He just kept staring at the horizon. I asked him what he saw. He whispered, "The ghosts. They want to take us." That's when I knew something was wrong. Eric wasn't acting like himself anymore. It was like he wasn't there. We decided to turn back, but the descent wasn't any easier. Every step felt heavier, like something was pulling us back up the mountain. The wind had picked up again, louder now, and the voices, they were clearer. But there was no one in sight. We were losing time, losing track of the day, the light. The sun should have been setting, but it wasn't. It was stuck. We couldn't see anything around us anymore, just swirling snow and shadowed figures. The voices grew louder, overwhelming. It felt like the mountain wasn't going to let us go. We finally reached a cliff edge, one we knew from the route. But there was something new. Mark's pack was there, and next to it, lying on the snow, was his jacket, the one he'd been wearing. The jacket was frozen, stiff, and the inside was covered in frostbite. But there was no sign of Mark. It was like the mountain had swallowed him whole. By the time we got to camp, everything had changed. The atmosphere had shifted. The shadows felt heavier, darker. And then, when I turned around, I saw it. The figure from the night before, standing at the edge of camp, watching. It was close now. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at it. I couldn't move. My legs felt like stone. The others were around me, but they didn't see it. They couldn't. That's when I realized. The ghosts of altitude weren't just the lost climbers, the ones who disappeared into the mountain. They were us. We had already crossed over. And there was no going back. So if you're ever in the mountains, climbing higher than you've ever been, if you hear the wind howling, but it's not the wind, if you start to see things, figures moving just out of your sight, it's not your mind playing tricks. It's the mountain calling. And once you hear it, you might never leave. Have you ever heard something you couldn't describe? Not a song, not a voice, something deeper, colder, like it comes from under your skin. It doesn't travel through your ears. It crawls through your bones. I used to work for a commercial balloon research program. We'd float sensors into the stratosphere, weather studies, atmospheric readings, routine stuff. Until one day, I went up with a capsule to fix a sensor manually. And I heard it. The sound, the Leviathan. The higher you go, the quieter the world gets. No birds, no insects, just wind. We launched from northern Utah, me and one engineer. I was in the pilot capsule, a reinforced metal egg floating beneath a massive helium balloon. Our goal was 80,000 feet. At 70,000, I started to hear it. It wasn't a sound in the traditional sense. It was felt. A pulse that made my fingernails ache. My vision swam, like heat waves were crawling across my eyes. I radioed down. No response. The balloon began to list to one side. I adjusted thrusters. Then, something passed over me. A shadow, not a real one. There were no clouds above, but the sun dimmed. The temperature inside dropped 20 degrees in under a minute, and then the sound came back, louder, more structured. A pattern, almost a voice. It didn't speak English. It spoke something older than speech, a communication of gravity, pressure, pain, and I understood just enough to know one thing. I wasn't supposed to be there. I looked out the capsule window, and that's when I saw it. It wasn't visible, not entirely, but where the light hit nothing, it bent. Clouds moved around something massive, something shaped like a whale, but longer. Limbs, tendrils, no wings, just volume and eyes. So many eyes, looking, blinking, then closing all at once. It was floating, silent, miles long, just gliding through a part of the sky we never think about. And the sound, it was coming from inside it, like a song to others of its kind, like a warning or a hunt. Then my capsule twitched. The instruments failed. Altimeter froze. Pressure dropped again, and something touched the capsule. Not a slam, not a crash, more like a finger. Enormous, careful, curious. The Leviathan was feeling me, and in that moment I felt what it felt. Boredom, hunger, loneness. A mind so huge it couldn't see us as anything but background noise, until I made a sound. I screamed, the capsule buckled, and the sky shook. It heard me. The song shifted pitch, a new tone, deeper, violent. The creature dove through the clouds, dragging air and heat with it. The entire balloon system was caught in a downward current, like a whirlpool of sky. I blacked out somewhere around 50,000 feet. When I woke up, I was in the desert, half conscious, bleeding, lying beside the ruined capsule. They told me I crash-landed. They told me the balloon tore in turbulence. They didn't explain the burns, or why the metal was warped outward like something had tried to open the capsule. They didn't explain the audio logs either, because I heard them. The recordings we retrieved were full of infrasound. Waves so low you couldn't hear them, only feel them. But when we played them at 100x speed, it sounded like breathing. They're out there, these massive leviathans of sky, older than weather, moving where no eyes can see, no plane can fly. They don't hate us. They barely notice us. But if you rise too high, if you pierce their domain, they might say hello. And if they do, you'll never hear silence the same way again.